Welcome back to Rad BMX Builds. On this episode, I have a guest appearance by Damian Fulton, and some of you may know him, some of you don't. If you don't, you've been living under a rock. This is the artist of the famous Radical Rick series found in the old BMX Plus magazines that many of us grew up with. Damian, welcome. Thank you so much for coming.
Good to be here. Nice to be part of this incredible world you've created.
Oh, thank you. It is a small but growing world. So I created Rad BMX Builds just to kind of relive those 80s childhood memories of BMX bikes, and part of those memories was Radical Rick, MX Mug, and the whole gang. And I didn't know who the artist was. I didn't think beyond the magazine, honestly, back then. But as you get older, I start digging down a little deeper, and I want to meet those people that brought me those really good memories. And you're one of those people. So meeting you in person, we've talked online a little bit, but meeting you in person has been fantastic.
Thank you.
So thanks again for coming. And we talked a little bit off camera just to get to know each other a little bit. And we have a lot more in common than I even thought that we would. And so I would like my audience here to get to know you a little bit. So if you could take a moment, kind of tell us who you are and how Radical Rick evolved.
Well, it's a long story, and it started back in 1979. And had a bunch of buddies. We were riding bikes at that time, precursors to mountain bikes up in the hills right around here in Orange County. And a buddy of mine, Dean Bradley, was a photographer for BMX Plus magazine. And he said, hey, you know, those guys at BMX Plus would love to have some illustrators and some more art for their magazine. So I drove out to LA, which might as well have been New York City from a kid from Orange County.
Sure, yeah.
And met with the publishers, Mike Aguirre and Jim Stevens, and I thought I was going to show off my hoity-toity illustrations because I was going to college at that time. But they said, you know, what we really need is a cartoon character. The Grab-On Kid, Bob Harrow, had developed a character for Grab-On Grips.
That's right.
And so they said, well, what if we did our own story, not advertising, but an actual storyline? And that's really the way it was birthed. I went home and I started thinking about Radical Rick and or what this character would be. And at the time, Star Wars was really huge.
Sure.
And I liked the idea of this character whose actions spoke louder than words.
Yeah.
And if you look at the early versions of Radical Rick, he kind of has a Darth Vader look to him.
He does.
You know,
yeah.
he's completely covered, and he's kind of a skull. The Jotha looked like teeth to me, and that's how it was birthed. I didn't know whether it would last or not, but I showed up there every month, and I kept dropping it off, starting with black and white, and then they said, hey, can you do color? I said, yeah, I'll figure out color. Did color, and then they expanded 2 pages, and that was, we were talking a little bit earlier, is Radical Rick got me into this whole world of BMX, you know, those formative years, and I'm just so appreciative. Looking back, I'm so glad I showed up.
Is that what opened the door for you? I mean, you've done so much other than Radical Rick. Is Radical Rick your breakthrough character or breakthrough illustration that you
know,
did?
The irony is I always thought that an illustrator or an artist had to do kind of highfalutin, hoity-toity, you know, photoreal or you know, album cover art. Back in our day, we had album covers, and that was like the pinnacle.
Yeah, yeah.
So comics, which I love reading comics, huge DC fan, you know, went on to work for Marvel. I loved comics, but it wasn't like today. Today, if you're a comic book artist, you're a rock star.
Yeah. And
they make movies of them and everything. And so I kind of kept Radical Rick, or this idea of comics, Radical Rick in particular, was sort of subversive in my life, or subdued, because when I was doing other jobs, other art direction jobs, or other posters, or working in film and TV, I didn't think that there was respect for cartoons. But Radical Rick kept coming back, and in fact, I found out that I should have never been keeping a lid on him, because people seem to really spark at the idea of a character-based storyline. And matter of fact, my first directing job and an advertising job came because somebody at a big ad agency saw the Radical Rick comic strip and hired me, even though, you know, I had no experience doing storyboards, I had no experience in broadcast. And they looked at Radical Rick. It was the episode where he reveals the Tackalack. And they just, at the time, that agency was handling Hot Wheels.
Oh, wow, okay.
And they looked at it and they said, oh my gosh, you understand cars and action and characters. Do you want to work here? And so Radical Rick has opened so many doors.
It brought you job offers, wow.
Yeah.
How many years did you draw Radical Rick for?
Well, I drew Radical Rick for 13 years. And one episode a month. There's 153, I think, episodes. And that went to 1993.
Okay.
And that at a time was a low time for BMX.
Terribly low.
Yeah.
Yeah. It took a drastic change.
And then you know that with some of the more of the I think it was I'm trying to think if it was the Vans Warped Tour or one of the tours came out, maybe the X Games, and BMX came back in the 2000s.
That's right.
And BMX Plus took those old episodes and started rerunning them. So Radical Rick kind of had an extra burst and went, you know, in the 2000s for a while too. They were kind of like reruns, you know, even though they were 80 stories, you know, they were running again. So.
And I think as maybe a consumer of Radical Rick, I think where the connection really was is that everyone could relate to Radical Rick. It was almost like when you get that magazine, open up and read Radical Rick, it's like you're connecting with a friend. It's a faceless friend, but it's something we all can relate to, riding at a local dirt track or being chased by bullies in the neighborhood, something like that. We all connected with Radical Rick to where it was almost like it was a make-believe friend of yours, you know?
Yeah.
But it was a way that you could get out of reality and live a life parallel with Radical Rick while reading those. So the connection there for me and probably for my friends and other kids was like, I kind of, maybe at not quite a drastic level, but I'm kind of also living a life like that. Like I go ride my local track, there's bullies in my neighborhood, and you know, I could do this or that, maybe not such an awesome flat tabletop jump, but I mean, I can do my version of a tabletop jump. So we all lived vicariously through Radical Rick, and I think that's why maybe that was so successful among people of our generations, is that he was an escape. You know, if I'm at work or school or whatever I'm doing at the time, and I could see that, I go, wow, I would rather be doing that, you know? So Radical Rick was such a cool, iconic character for us to live through. I think that is partially why it was so iconic and still today such a strong stakehold in our memories of BMX.
Well, I've heard this over and over. For me, they were just adventures that I tried to be topical, whatever was going on in the 80s or 90s. But what I hear reflected back is there wasn't a channel, or there wasn't entertainment for us. There was television shows that, you know, about superheroes or adventures in cars or whatever, TV shows, which were awesome, right? We all loved that stuff. But from what I heard is that for the kids that were riding and that were racing, that was something that they could identify with,
yeah,
they could consume. And I hear this over and over, that people say, you know, I would read the magazines cover to cover, but I'd usually go to the back to read Radical Rick.
I would skip right to the back. Right to the back. I would go into the store and open it up and skip right to that.
Oh, man.
And after I'm done reading Radical Rick, I'd probably pick up a Mad magazine and read that too. Like, I was just really into the comics.
Yeah, right.
But not a comic book guy. I was the more non-traditional comics like Radical Rick and Mad magazine. Yeah. And I remember going into, like, I mean, it wasn't a CVS then, but a Safeway or something, and just running right to the magazine rack while Mom went and did whatever she was doing. I was reading Radical Rick.
But wasn't it cool when you go to some newsstands, they didn't have BMX magazines? Yeah. And you go, crestfallen.
Right.
And then you go to another one, there it is.
You get to know who carries them, and you like go out of your way to go there.
Yeah,
for sure. And then beg for them to buy me the magazine. Like,
yeah.
I will do chores if you buy me this magazine, because, you know.
Right.
But yeah, so I got to ask you some questions that I know maybe some of the viewers or followers want to know. Is there's some things about Radical Rick that aren't really ever disclosed. Have you ever drawn him without his helmet? Does he have a face?
There is one shot, I believe, back in '82, I think, there was a series in the magazine called The Roots of Radical Rick. And it talks about before and how Radical Rick got his helmet. So there are shots of him, but they're all, he's a toddler.
Oh, okay.
He's an infant, he's a toddler in different situations, and you only see the back of his head.
Oh, I see what you did. Okay.
Yeah.
So have you ever personally, without publicizing it, drawn what you think his face would look like?
Never. Absolutely not. I don't even want to think about it. I think he's every man, right? I mean,
That's what's so great about him, yeah.
And I'm super cool about MX Mug. I mean, he can take his joke off. You can see his buck teeth. What doesn't matter.
Carrot nose.
Yeah, he's much more like me, and I think I think everybody can relate to wanting to, to emulate your hero. Mm-hmm. What I like about Radical Rick, what I tried to do was he was never a show off. And he was always, it was only his love of the sport, his desire to fulfill that, that urge, that temptation, that drive to get out and ride. And so anyway, I'd rather him be this.
He's a humble hero.
Yeah, do you ever watch a movie and like you have this idea of like, who this actor is or who this character is in a movie. Right. Then you see him in an interview and he's like, and you don't want to meet your heroes, right? They'll always disappoint you. So I don't want to be disappointed, and I hope that I could never meet anybody's idea or expectation. It's like when you read a book, and you sort of imagine who that character is, and then you see it in the movie theater, and it's like, oh, that guy's horrible. That mystery always makes people want more. So Tom Cruise, as in an Interview with a Vampire, Lestat, that character is supposed to be white, almost albino, and Tom Cruise played him. Wrong. Anyway. So what about where's he from? Where do you? Radical Rick comes from Crushed Crank Canyon, which is this sort of mythical, probably California suburb. You and I grew up here. Is there a certain place that maybe made you think of that? I think, probably what captured it the best would be an E.T., that sort of track home, off the beaten track, fields all around, undeveloped land. So everything's available to you. Malls, construction sites. When you were a kid, you remember how before they bulldozed everything, there was around the corner, there was always a vacant lot where you could build jumps and go on bike adventures. They were building homes behind my house, and when the workers would go home at the end of the day, we'd go grab all their scrap wood, and we made the biggest quarter pipe out of scrap wood. And then I built it right in the street in front of the house. And my parents came home and they went, "What is that monstrosity in front of the house? Like, it needs to move." And it probably weighed 600 pounds. We overbuilt the crap out of that thing. And it took us hours to drag it down the street because, we didn't have anything to put it on. And just dragging the 600-pound plywood thing down the street. You don't have the long game always figured out when you're a kid. It was like wood, ramp. This is a good idea. That's it. Plus 1, 2. That's it. As far as I thought. And my parents were not stoked about that at all. But yeah, we would just... I did a video a while back of going back to Acacia Park in Fullerton. And along there is the Fullerton River, right across from Cal State Fullerton, where you went to school. And we used to build jumps along that walkway there. And if you go back to this day, you can still see the remnants of those jumps. They're not really jumps, but you can see how we dug out the earth. And it's still there, and it blew my mind. Now it's all overgrown, but I highlighted, like, we would come down this path. You could still do this. So yeah, every kid did that. We all had our own backyard dirt jump. We all had our own plywood ramp. And clearly Radical Rick grew up in that type of environment. Back then, that's what you did. You didn't have these really cool concrete skate parks that every HOA is built in every neighborhood. Like, that didn't exist. We had the pipeline in Upland, and then you had dirt jumps in your backyard, or maybe a local BMX track out of dirt. Modern day BMX tracks are not all dirt like they are now. And you went out there, you rode off with a shovel, and that's about it. A few bucks in your pocket for lunch. Yeah, you're lucky in California if it rained.
That's right. You needed the water
because the dirt became a little more malleable.
That's
and you
right.
could dig deeper, and you could have obstacles and splashes. It's great.
Sure, yeah. And then you would drink out of someone's hose in the neighborhood on your way home, and that's how you lived life.
Yeah.
So did MX Mug come on at the same time as Radical Rick?
He did. He appeared in the very first issue. And initially, MX Mug was it was a kind of spy versus spy. You mentioned Mad Magazine, where MX Mug desperately wanted to win, and Radical Rick just found a way to always win. I think in an early issue, MX Mug might have actually won one race or one moto maybe. And of course, at the end of that episode, even though he wins, he finally gets what he's always wanted, the trophy, and he turns, and there's Radical Rick surrounded by girls. It's like, maybe, no matter what, I'm always going to be one rung lower. Yeah. So, but they become great friends, right? Sure. And MX Mug believes that, it's funny, it's almost like the rapper with his entourage, some of the guys that are nearby think they somehow have the same kind of talent or abilities because they're so close and they're buddies. But the truth, no, he didn't have it. MX Mug, nice guy, very loyal. Very loyal. No rad gland.
No, none at all. We all need a friend like that. It makes us look better, It's so with magazines no longer being out there, it's not really a thing. Everything's gone digital. Have you ever considered Radical Rick having his own social media platform, like his own Instagram account, maybe his own YouTube channel, and Radical Rick kind of coming back into people's lives by way of new platforms?
Well, you're touching on a very topical issue right now, and Radical Rick has been in and out of the Hollywood system. It's been optioned many times. I've been contacted by Netflix, and I'm happy to tell you every rumor you've heard about Hollywood is absolutely true. So there is still interest. So that's sort of the film series Netflix thing aside. As far as its own platform, my deal is the time to run these things is very difficult. It's consuming. And really all I'm trying to do right now is to continue to, I feel like a couple years ago, a lot of you guys grew up and said, I remember Radical Rick, where's Radical Rick? Mm-hmm. He hit 40, and so I just started leaning in, mostly out of fan request, and started doing some doodles, and it's just exploded. And it seems like it's really taken off. So really, the only time I have is to really either further, to answer fan requests for drawings and commissions and that sort of thing, and then developing new product for Radical Rick. And that's enough for me right now.
Your product line is done very well, in my opinion. I don't know how it's done in your opinion, but with the boom of these 80s bikes and these collectors, by coming out with pads and number plates and things that the consumer can purchase and have a tangible item from representing that period of time of their childhood, I think that's genius in doing that.
Well, I wish I could take credit for that. It's really not me making that go forward. It's people like Erin over at Flight, who contacts me and goes, hey, it'd be cool as pad sets, and I've gone down for that. Or,
she's awesome. Erin, you're awesome.
Yeah, or Supercross, those guys they love bobbleheads, and
those were really cool.
But that's led by those guys, and I'm just super, super thankful that folks who want to do something collaborate, and I love collaborating with people.
They seem to sell out so fast. I'm shocked, and if any of you that have made these things are listening, I'm shocked that you don't keep making them, because the demand is there for these products. So if you're willing to keep making those, people will keep buying them. So please keep doing these type of things, because they're so cool to have. I'm a collector of pads and number plates and memorabilia like that, and I know I'm not the only one. I've seen some people out there.
I'm going to break something live to your audience. We're working with Flight right now, and they're coming up with really funny concept. And it is a Radical Rick, an MX mug, and a Scuzzer switchblade pad set. And each are different, and they each have the character. And Chris over there is the designer. We bounce ideas back and forth, and I can't get into the details, but they're really funny. They're a lot of fun.
Well, I look forward to that. Put me first in line for those, because I'm a big fan of Erin at Flight and her products. I use them on almost all my bikes. Clearly a big fan of yours and your characters. And what about a bike? What about something bigger other than accessories?
Remember, we're not going to talk about the bike, remember?
We're not going to talk about a Radical Rick bike. Wouldn't that be rad, though, to have an actual Radical Rick bike?
I don't know what he's talking about. You didn't hear it here, and let's just move along.
Okay, fair enough. So that would be cool, though. That would be really cool. So a couple other things I just want to bring up. So we talked a little bit about Radical Rick as a character and MX Mug. I think what I want to find out a little bit more about is, where's Radical Rick going now? So you talked about how hard it is to maintain, and I can vouch for that, a social media page like an Instagram account, or even a YouTube channel, which is a ton of time. A lot of people don't realize that. They just look at the end product, right? All the stuff going into that. So if that's not something you want to do immediately for Radical Rick, are there going to be new drawings or anything like that?
Probably the most asked question is, when will there be a reboot of the Radical Rick comic strip? And back to my original, I don't think you can get the Beatles back together.
No.
Anytime, you know, I don't want to see Duran Duran together. I want that legacy to stand on its own. I don't know whether I could ever fulfill the expectations. I'm open if you know, some new creative wants to take the idea of Radical Rick and you bring him into today. I'm all for that. What I can tell you is the much anticipated, very slow moving Radical Rick compendium, all the episodes in a beautiful coffee table book, is plodding along. And we were talking about this earlier. That will eventually come out, and that has some new illustrations in it, not new episodes, but it has every episode from back in the day. It's like, I always use the analogy of like cleaning out your attic or your garage or whatever. It can always be pushed down the road, and as long as there's more exciting, you know, sort of reactionary calls for Radical Rick needs or commissions or other work, those, I'm just admitting here, I'm flawed, those seem to get the attention, and that dang book just gets pushed back farther and farther. But I can't wait until that's done.
I can't either. I've seen some stuff that you've posted in regards to that, and that's something I know that everybody's going to want. So we'll continue to wait patiently as best we can. I'm not a patient person, honestly. So it's going to be a struggle for me to do that.
Thank you.
So I look forward to that. Do you have a website or anything?
Yeah, the best way to see the coolest, newest Radical Rick product is at radicalrickbmx.com.
Okay. And
radicalrickbmx.com has got cool t-shirts. I love them. You know, we announce the new product, like the number plate. Give updates on there's a new bottle coming out. There's all this cool stuff, figures in the works, and so that's where you would find that information out. The other place where you can follow me is on Instagram, is Damian Fulton.
Okay. And we're going to link all of that below too.
Cool.
So in the description below, we'll have the links directly to the website and his Instagram.
Yeah, and there's a Radical Rick Facebook page, but that's like a lot of people add to that, and it's I have some control over it, but it's sort of people commenting and seeing artwork on it. So yeah.
Awesome. Okay. There's some other things that we're going to do. I think you're going to bless us with a drawing today. So I'm going to put you on the spot there.
Wait, twist my arm.
I know. I'm going to have an artist draw a picture. Weird concept. So I think we'll finish up with our discussion here, and then we're going to move this to the drawing. And there's a few other things. Damian brought a bicycle with him that we're going to show. It's unique. It's kind of cool. It's more mid-90s, but we're going to show it to you. It's something that was given to him, and maybe we can do something with it for him. But let's go ahead and we'll get up out of these chairs and we'll set you up for a drawing, and we'll see how that goes.
Listen, before we go do that, I just want to say thank you so much, man.
Thank you.
I want to thank you for what you're doing. The sport of BMX, I feel like, deserves to be elevated, and it's been very, very good to me. I know it's brought a lot of life to kids, and now after COVID, this rediscovery of bicycles is heartwarming for me. So I just want to thank you for what you're doing.
I appreciate it.
And now I'm going to go draw. See you later. Hold on a second. Let me get in hair and makeup.
Yeah.
I'm back.
Do the eyebrows and